Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Redford, and this is the follow-up. Coming up on tonight's show, social media giants are under attack, criticized for violating our principles of free speech, accused of censoring content they consider offensive. But critics claim these companies have a political agenda. The case against them is now in the hands of the U.S. Supreme Court. Veteran journalist Bob Johnson from MLive is live in studio with his perspective. Plus, it's that time of year again, tax time. Not only the time all of us need to file our tax returns, but for a lot of us, it's the time we start thinking more about our finances overall. Could I do a better job with my money? Not only as individuals, but as business owners as well. Charlene Orange can help us with that. She is an experienced data and financial analyst, and she is in studio with us as well. But first, we would like to hear from you to help drive the conversation here on the show. You can do that in a variety of ways via social media on Facebook. You can email us. You can dial into our follow-up hotline to voice your opinion or suggest future show topics. And you can leave a comment on YouTube. If you'd like to watch any of our previous shows this season, just log on to deltapublicmedia.org. Our first guest in studio, veteran journalist Bob Johnson, a good friend of the show, been on before, and glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the veteran. I've been waiting to get that title.
You and I are in this together, okay? And officially you're an MLive editor for the Saginaw News and Bay City Times, so make sure you read his stuff. A lot of buzz about social media on the platforms. Government officials looking better ways to control it. Some cases maybe censoring content. In case of at least one of these social media companies lately, Congress is trying to ban it altogether. Before we get into the weeds on that, I think the viewers would like to hear a little bit more about sort of MLive. You're an editor. How do you deal with social media in terms of your coverage? That's how you engage viewers. But how do you handle the content that comes and goes?
It's a method and like it's a science, but it's art. At the same time, it boils down to common sense. You can hear a rumor can start on social media, and it might be a little tiny piece of truth to that. And our job is to go out and figure out, the credibility of that, and or if it's true, if it's not true, or what are the other details. Because on social media, people are looking for information while other people are spreading information. But our job is to come in and try to make sure that they get the best information. And as far as posting, when I say common sense, I don't think it's like rules. Everyone have hard rules as to how they handle social media, but like anything in life, it's just common sense. Offensive things or things that are just flat out lies, or does not fit the narrative that ties in with the mission of your organization.
Right.
Those are things that you just say, okay, we'll pass on that.
Common sense. So there's something new. At Delta Public Media, we, as you heard, I tease social media. That's how we engage viewers. And common sense is good. I mean, we cannot run everything that comes in. We get comments from week to week on this show. Most of it's pretty good. We try to run it here, feedback from the audience, but some of it's kind of offensive, and we have to have editorial license, and you do the same, right?
Yeah. Well, you probably remember this maybe 10 years ago, a little less maybe. We had a comment section on MLive, and that people did not like that because you could be anonymous, and once you let people become anonymous, they will let you know how they really are. And there was so much hate and just everything, racism, sexism, everything. And at some point, we tried to moderate them, and that was almost impossible.
Right.
And so at some point, we just did away with it. We moved over to social media and got social media pages for people to use that to comment there, which social media is kind of hard to be anonymous now.
Sure.
So you get less hateful, but at least you get a real person.
Sure.
So A lot of people say that they are happy that we got rid of the comments. I'm in the middle because sometimes you really do want to hear what people say, and
Absolutely.
some people can't say what they really need to say for whatever reasons, the job or professionalism, you know, but sometimes you want to hear it, but you know, when it gets out of hand, that's something that needs to be checked.
Right, and it's hard during this political season, which is only got to ramp up into the election and make sure, as an editor, fair and balanced, this candidate and this candidate. I think that's very hard. So, on that note, the U.S. Supreme Court taking on a case involving social media giants, including Facebook and X, formerly Twitter, for flat out sort of censoring content, at least that the critics claim that, favoring one candidate over another. Critics claim it's an affront to free speech, but the social media companies will say, listen, just treat us like any other media company, like an MLive, allowing them to make editorial decisions, particularly if the content is offensive, right? So where are you on that? Should they be treated sort of like any other media company? Have you looked at it that way?
I wouldn't say media unless they redefine what media is.
Yeah.
It's entertainment, it's information, it's a form of media, but you know, if you were to create a platform right now and sign up 100 people and let them talk about whatever they wanted to, would you like for someone to come in and tell you, well, you can't do that? You know, it's a business.
Right.
All right. I could see stepping in when you get so much influence and trying to, you know, let them know you have a responsibility here to kind of not incite violence or hate or things like that. But when is that overstepping too? You know, it's a fine line. These are businesses that were started by entrepreneurs that probably didn't know that they would grow into the influence that they would have. And on the other side of that, there's a lot of good on social media too.
Sure.
A lot of information there. A lot of things are created there. But yeah, I would say that's a fine line when you come in and try to regulate a business that someone created that probably had no idea that it would gain this type of influence.
Right, and along that note, kind of breaking this week, I guess you could call it that, Congress is sort of taking on TikTok now. Owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. There are concerns the Chinese are gaining access to our information, that it's a tool to push propaganda. TikTok has 100 million subscribers, plus a lot of businesses. So one lawmaker says it poses an unacceptable risk to the U.S. national security by allowing the Chinese government to surveil and influence the American public. Those that oppose that say, listen, it's an affront to our free speech.
I never got that argument because when you sign up for any social media, you're going to give a certain amount of information anyway. They're going to track your habits for advertising purposes or for just information gathering. That's a risk you take when you decide to sign up for social media. And again, social media isn't all bad either.
Right.
But just saying that this is a way for someone to, I don't know, spy on us or gather information, like, I don't know anybody who I know who use social media has nuclear codes that they can give out. You know, like the most they can give out is like their Amazon shopping habits or something.
Right. And that's what concerns me, I guess, as a journalist like you are. If you ban TikTok, which is what they're talking about doing, if this company ByteDance doesn't pull away and an American company owns it, they're talking about banning it, and to me that's a slippery slope. You ban them, and then what next? That's where I have a problem. Yeah. Yeah.
How much longer before anything can be banned?
Right.
You know.
So one other area I'm going to touch on before I bring on Charlene. Sort of this has to do with transparency or the lack thereof. In 2022, Michigan voters approved Proposal 1, which was designed to open doors for financial disclosure for politicians. And I think overall sort of allow reporters like yourself to a little bit more access to the government, public universities. Hasn't really had much traction. Michigan, state government, and some public universities here, MSU, are considered the worst pretty much in the country when it comes to opening its books to reporters. So touch on the transparency issue. Do you and your reporters run into a lot of brick walls, or you're just trying to get the information, disseminate that to your readers, right? And yet they've got these brick walls. How do you deal with that?
So our team of reporters, first, we are local, and one of the benefits of that is that, you know, we know a lot of people in our community. So it's not really hard to get information. It's pretty easy to educate those with the information,
Sure.
let them know what their job is. Like, you're not just a gatekeeper of information, and your job is to make that information readily available to the people who pay taxes, who depend on that type of information to make their decisions. However, you know, there are journalists in our company at a higher level who deal with state issues and things like that, and it can be really tough for them. In a perfect world, like we said before the show, in a perfect world, you send out a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request, and you should be able to get the information without going through a lot of tape.
Sure.
But that doesn't happen, and sometimes it's kind of like, I don't know if it's because the people in charge of giving that information don't know that their job is to comply with the FOIA and not look at the person or the organization that's asking for the information as an enemy, or that they're going to go and make us look bad with this.
Right.
You know, perception, that can happen, but getting information is not for bad purposes all the time. Like, a lot of good things, good information comes out of that.
Right.
And it's kind of heartbreaking a little bit that we have to fight for information that should be free, from officials who we pay taxes
Sure.
to, you know, make sure that they can work.
Needs to be a lot more advocacy, not only through media companies, which I'm sure you guys do that. We're paying a lot of attorneys that want to get this information. They're getting rich over this stuff.
Yes.
But the public, I think, needs to be more aware of this. Media companies should work together to get this information, because it's really the right thing to do. So.
It is.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. I know you're looking forward to political season, or not.
Thanks for having me.
It's just the beginning, and November's coming up before you know it, and I know you're going to be hitting the streets and bringing us the information. So
Yeah, we got a Biden visit
on
this
Tuesday.
week.
Thursday.
Yeah. So
Any idea where he's going? I haven't heard.
we don't know yet. They're keeping it hush hush.
Right.
He's flying in MBS. We know
Yeah.
that part, but we'll probably know more details later.
We'll
this
we'll
week.
dial into MLive. We'll get all the information.
We
I
will.
suggest
We
you
will
do
have
too.
it.
All right. We'll have you back on. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
And as you step off, we're bringing in Charlene Orange. And Charlene is a data and financial analyst. She runs a company called Executive Business Solutions. She is a Saginaw native and doing some good work in that world. And it's tax time, so I figured let's bring Charlene on and talk a little bit about that. Let's start here. Tell us about Executive Business Solutions. Sort of what are your areas of expertise? Who's your target market? How long has this been up and running? What do you want to do with it? So take it from here.
Okay. Well, Executive Business Solutions, we do bookkeeping and financial reporting and specialize in customized databases and spreadsheets. Primarily, our target market would be the small business owner. A lot of times they don't know what they don't know. I've run across individuals who have been in business for years and are profitable, but they were not tracking their finances. So that is my target market, but I also help personal individuals with their personal finances as well, because again, your home is a business as well. So that would be what we do at Executive Business Solutions. And we also provide computer training.
Okay.
And we put on our first Microsoft Excel training course on January 27th. We had our second, which was an intermediate. The first one was Introduction to Excel, the basics. The second one was an intermediate course, which we just offered on March 2nd. And due to increased demand after the public saw the second course, we are now putting on a third course, going back to introductory, on March the 23rd.
So where'd you get the idea of doing these workshops? I think it's a good idea because you're educating people. You chose Excel. Are there some other programs that you're going to get into, and then sort of why Excel? And who needs to kind of attend these workshops, I guess, because you started with sort of Saginaw City government, and so tell me about the path of these workshops and how that's working out.
So I started off initially doing these workshops with Keisha Smith of the Saginaw Economic Development Center with the city of Saginaw. And she noticed that there was a need for people coming in to apply for funds from the city. They needed to understand their numbers. That's where they were falling short. Their credit might be fine, but they were not tracking their finances, their income, their expenses, and they just didn't have that full package. So she asked me to come in and do a 3-part series on the importance of knowing your numbers from a business aspect. And so I did my first workshop for the city virtually online during COVID in 2021. And subsequently, she puts on these workshops maybe once or twice a year. And it's part of her business plan business plan writing workshop series. So the first part is actually writing the business plan, the words, and another person, Miss Lily Graves, ran that part. And then the second part would be knowing your numbers. And what we found through these workshops as well is that some of the attendees, some were aspiring entrepreneurs, some were in business for a while, they didn't understand Excel. And everything that I was giving to them with regard to profit and loss, tracking your cash flows, balance sheets, it was all in Excel.
Sure.
So Keisha and I said, we need to take a step back further and do an Excel class. So I did my first Excel class for the city.
And it's not just for, let's say, aspiring business owners. It could be anybody in the community, which I think is maybe your next step. Offer it into maybe churches or community centers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Well, once I announced that I was doing these classes outside of the city through Executive Business Solutions, I had individuals, not just business owners, reaching out to me and saying, hey, I know how to do everything from a phone, but I really don't know a lot about computers. Or my job, we have Excel spreadsheets and I'm not really sure how to work with them. I've even had a student from Delta who is taking an Excel course here, and she just needed some tutoring. So people from different walks of life were reaching out to me. And I said, okay, well, there's a need much broader than the small business world or the business world in the community. And so I reached out to some people with the neighborhood house, and I'm reaching out to First Ward. I reached out to my church members, and we really want to put on not just Excel, but just basic computer training courses free to the community. So some of that's in the works. I've had individuals reach out, and since they see that I'm doing Excel, well, can you do a Microsoft Word class? So we're going to do the entire Microsoft Word suite, and we're also going to do a basic just introduction to computer classes.
In some of the Excel workshops, is it a kind of one-time only? I show up for a day, half a day? Is it over a period of few days?
It's a one-time.
Okay.
It's a one-time. And so we start with the beginners, and then there's intermediate, and then there's advanced. And so the goal is to do one class monthly, and they'll rotate. So beginners, and then intermediate, and then advanced. But depending on the demand, we could give a workshop multiple times a month, and we could make it a series within a month. It's gaining a lot more traction than I originally thought that it would, but it's been a good thing so far.
Okay. I know your website's sort of under construction,
so
I won't send viewers there, but we can send them to your email address, which I know that the guys in the back will put up while we're talking. So I'm just thinking about like financial literacy in general. I just think there's a huge need for that. They're not really teaching it in a lot of schools.
No.
What are your thoughts on that? How can we make sort of financial literacy better, not just for adults, but kind of introducing it more at a younger age, as opposed to just kind of you're an adult and you've got huge debt, trying to pay for college, and boy, I wish I knew more when I was a kid. Any thoughts on that?
In high school, Mr. Haroff.
Shout out to Mr. Haroff.
Shout out to Mr. Haroff.
Okay.
He was our econ teacher, and I don't even know if they do that in high schools anymore. But he taught us about money. He taught us about credit. I opened my first bank account when I was a senior at Saginaw High because we could get extra credit, right? If we opened up a bank account. And my first bank account was at Team One Credit Union, and I had it for at least 30 years.
Right.
I think we need to get back to that. I don't have a high schooler. I have a 9-year-old, so I'm not exactly sure. But if they're doing that in high school now, but we learned about money and about credit and about spending. But I think it should start earlier than that. They should start, doing the very basics in elementary and then take it to the next level in junior high. And then, because even as a college student, no one told me about the credit cards, right?
Right.
They just give you credit cards left, right, and center. And if you don't know anything about credit and how it works, and you would get a credit card and max it out and then get another credit card and not having any idea of what you're setting yourself up for in the future. And the credit card companies aren't telling you either. They're just giving them to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, they like it just the way it is. I know you're in data and financial analyst, so that's your expertise. I know you're not really doing tax returns. You're not a tax accountant, but it is tax time. And I think you have some advice as people, if they haven't filed yet, some have, many haven't, I haven't. What advice do you have, at least kind of going into this season, that they can do if they haven't filed yet?
If you have not filed yet, I would absolutely say make sure you have all your documentation in order. Of course, we know your W-2s, and to have all of the forms that say an employer, your retirement fund, IRAs, all of that, they're going to send you your documentation. Have all of that together in one place. If you make donations, that's a lot of people donate to the rescue mission. They'll donate to the Salvation Army or the Goodwill, and they'll just drop it off and won't wait for the receipt. Get the receipt so you can get the credit for the donations that you have made and get a deduction for that. I would also say your churches, if you give to your church, they're going to give you a statement. Get all of those papers together. And I would advise that businesses and individuals keep those things in a box just the year long, so that when it's time to file, you take it to your tax preparer and everything is in that there box.
Yeah, not a messy little shoebox, right?
Right, yeah, whatever.
Organize that a little better, right?
Yeah.
Using Excel, if you know
Using
that.
Excel,
Possibly.
right, if you know how.
So in a few minutes that we have here, your life's journey is interesting because you went to the University of Michigan, and I think you got an electrical engineering degree, right? And then I think at some point you thought about maybe being a doctor, right? But now you fast forward, and your life's journey's got you into data and financial analyst, doing workshops in Excel, helping small business owners with their finances in addition to individuals and families. So walk us through that. Tell us about that. I think it's interesting.
Well, I have always had a heart for helping people from a young child. That is my life's pleasure, is to help people in any kind of way that I can. But I've always loved math and science, right? So that everything that I've done in my career has surrounded helping people, numbers, math. So I worked as an electrical engineer at a biomedical engineering company in Ann Arbor for about 4 years. And then as I worked on this equipment, we did perfusion systems. So if you have to have an open heart surgery, they have to stop your heart from beating. And our equipment would do the function of the heart and the lungs and pump the blood through your body while they were operating. And so I had opportunity to see some open heart procedures, and I just kept finding that I cared more about the patient than the equipment. So being a doctor was always, back here in the recesses of my mind, and so I left engineering to pursue medicine. And that took me to Atlanta, where I did a pre-med post-bac program to prepare me to apply to medical school. Then life, and I got really close to getting in, but I did not get in. And so there was a moment where I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And I was working part-time at my church credit union. One of the bank managers needed a financial analyst at his firm. I interviewed and landed in the world of finance. I'd always been a data analyst. Numbers are numbers. Math is math. If you're adding for medicine, if you're adding for finance, it doesn't matter. Math is math, and numbers don't change. It's just
Right.
an application. And I really enjoyed being a financial analyst, and that just kind of started my trajectory, my career in finance in 2013.
And Mr. Haroff get a piece of your commission?
Mr.
'cause you're
Haroff,
getting financial aid?
absolutely.
So you ended up working, I think, for the city of Saginaw.
For
You
the
also
city of
worked for
Saginaw.
Covenant Healthcare a little
Yep.
bit too, right? So tell me about that experience.
So at Covenant was, so I returned home to Saginaw from Atlanta in 2018, and I was a data analyst
Right.
at Covenant. And then I moved on ultimately to the city of Saginaw to be a budget analyst. Learned a lot under the budget director, Ms. Yolanda Bland,
Right.
and that's where I worked with Keisha as well, because we
Okay.
both reported
Got it.
to her.
That's the
but-
connection, yeah.
Yep, but I was already doing work as a vendor before I became an employee for the
Sure.
city. And at that time, Executive Business Solutions existed as the Orange Coffee Company. So for many years, I was working as the Orange Coffee Company. And
Which is
then-
connected to your name for the viewers
which
that
was
know
connected
that,
to
right?
my name,
Got it.
exactly, Charlene Coffee Orange.
Right.
And as my clientele started to pick up just by word of mouth, I never did any advertising, but my clientele started to compete with my 9 to 5. And so I really started to wrap my mind around doing this full time, and went ahead and pulled the trigger in January. But I wanted to change the name of my company to something that was related to business, so I wouldn't have to tell you. You would ask me, well,
Right.
what do you do at the Orange Coffee Company? But
Right.
Executive Business Solutions speaks more to the realm
Sure.
of what I do.
Right. So before you leave, the last thing, make sure the viewers know a little bit more about the workshops on Excel, but you're going to be expanding to some other things, maybe Microsoft. So how do they find you? How do they sign up if they're interested in doing that?
If you are interested in signing, if anyone is interested in signing up for the course, you can find me on Facebook under Executive Business Solutions LLC, and my phone number and my office address are on there.
Okay.
The classes are listed there. The next Excel is going to be an introductory to Excel. Class will be offered on Saturday, March the 23rd at the CMURC and the SVRC Marketplace
Okay.
from 12 to
I would
2:30.
write that down. I need a little help with Excel.
Come
with
on.
my taxes. Okay.
Have a seat just for you. And registration is through Eventbrite. There's a link. And you can always give me a call at my number, which I think you're going to put on the screen, but if not,
We've got your email, and
Okay.
we'll be good to go on that. So
okay, yeah.
appreciate it. Nice seeing you, and good luck with your new
Thank you.
career.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And that's our show for tonight, but be sure to join us again next week for the follow-up. We'll be talking to 3 chief science officers and how they are leading the STEM initiative nationwide. It's going to be pretty cool. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And make sure to click that bell icon to stay notified when we upload new content. Videos like this are only possible because of viewers like you. To help support this channel, click on the link in the description below. We'll see you next time.